will get. Yes? What? I think you guys forget how 90% of our meetings go. This is it. Why is this mic on? Good evening. Oh, is my coming through the sounds? Perfect. Great. Thank you. Good evening. Welcome to the RSU 5 Board of Directors meeting. It is Wednesday, September 10th, 2025. We are here in the Freeport High School Library. Just wanted to give a quick welcome to two new board members since we finished last year, Valerie Williams and Chris Saviano. So we had our board retreat, so they are well immersed into the group, but for folks watching at home, they are new members, so welcome. Anna and Maura are both not with us this evening, and Steph is running a little bit behind, so she will be joining us shortly. Phoebe is still our student rep until elections, when she will, I'm sure, have a landslide victory again. But so welcome back, Phoebe. Welcome to senior year. And we will get started with the Pledge of Allegiance. Do I have a motion for consideration and approval of the minutes from August 27th, 2025 as presented, barring any errors or omissions? Kelly and Valerie, thank you. All those in favor? Great. None opposed. Adjustments? None? Great. All right, so we will move right into good news and recognition and start with our report from Phoebe, our board student rep.
So I'm a senior now, so I'm just flying by the seat of my pants. But week and a half into school, people are so excited. Like, the energy in the hallways is awesome. We have our amazing upperclassmen paired with their freshmen and transfer mentees. We've already done some really fun activities, including on the Tuesday that school started, where it was just freshmen and their mentees. They were able to walk through all their classes, learn the ropes without all the scary sophomores there. We also have club meetings all started this week. We have at least one new club, but I'm sure there'll be more, like, as the school year goes on. Lots of club recruiting is happening too, especially Active Minds. And sports are starting. I think all teams have had their home openers except for football, which is on Friday. And we had open house last night, which families got to come and meet teachers and get a little peek into the high school. So yeah, not too much to report, but things are going well, and it's been a good week and a half.
Thank you. All right. Public comment. This is where we look at the empty audience in case someone comes flying around the corner. All right. We will carry on. Item 8, report from the superintendent.
Good evening, everybody. Is this picking my voice up? Okay. My first one of these. So I'd like to just share some updates with you since the start of school. I'll talk a bit about the strategic plan, about how we're thinking about going forward with the budget process this year. There's some enrollment data to look at, and talking about some longer range planning on some critical issues. So several board members were able to attend the staff opening day, the PLD day. We took pains this year to make sure that event was really inclusive. We know that we have a number of staff for whom English is not the first language, and I really need to point out that Erica back there really worked hard to make sure that we had translation available for those CERP folks so that they could feel and be fully included. I think that was really important. It was a great day. The district here does a fantastic job making that meaningful. Not every district that I have worked in actually has the entire district come together in person to open the school year. And everything that happened in the cafeteria, everything that happened in the auditorium, the longevity awards, I thought it set a really good note. It was a privilege to be there. And I shared a little bit about myself and my journey and my values, and I have been making it a priority as school has started to be as visible in the schools as I can be. I put some of those in my weekly update to you, and I don't need to rehash them all, but I'm going to continue to do that. Serving lunch at the high school was particularly cool. I don't know if I served you lunch, but I served lots of people lunch. It was fun. It was the sticks and Bosco sticks. And honestly, I think they knew that it was me, and they're like, we should make it easy for this guy. Just like 2 sticks. It was fun. The whole team administrative team has worked hard to make school open. And I don't know if you noticed, but I noticed school opened pretty darn seamlessly across the whole district. Some people who really deserve shout outs. Sam Rigby had a huge lift this summer with lots of tech updates, and most of those have come to fruition. Some of them will have to be spaced out as the school year goes along during times when kids are not in school, but Sam's really worked hard, and his team have done a great job. Glenn Reynolds and the facilities crew and the custodial crew have had a ton of updates across the district, and those have been in place so that school could open efficiently. Really, really good work there. I didn't get a single call about bus problems when school opened, which is a huge thing.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Jeremy did a fantastic job, and this seems like an opportune time to point out that even though we had anticipated, I say we, but I wasn't here yet, the district had anticipated that we would need more drivers and more vehicles, and got an extra van and replaced an old van. We've still had to push a van that has 200,000 miles back into service, and we are using every driver we have, and we are fully maxed out. And Jeremy has made that work seamlessly. So a lot of credit to Jeremy. So again, I could go on, but it's been an auspicious start to the year, and you should know that. A little bit about the strategic plan. So we have, obviously you know that work began on that last winter and spring. We are continuing the work on that now, and in fact, just today, I participated in one of the focus groups at the middle school where we had kids in small groups, and they were asked a series of questions that were largely about what are your hopes and aspirations for this district? What do we do well? What do we need to improve? And not surprisingly, kids are really candid. And so we got a lot of good feedback from those conversations that we will carry forward in figuring out the plan. I also want to point out that this is for the whole community. We have focus groups scheduled for the end of this month that are really important. The dates and times of these are on our website, but I'll announce them here now too. On Monday, September 22nd at 6 o'clock, we have a focus group at Pownell Elementary School. Thursday, the 25th at 6 at Durham. Saturday, September 27th at 10 a.m. at the Freeport Community Library. And Tuesday, September 30th at 6 o'clock here at the high school. So those are opportunities for any community member to join in a conversation about what our district should look like and how it should continue to grow.
And you don't have to attend the one like where your kids go, right? So if a Saturday one works better for you, you're welcome to come to any of the, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Great.
And those are not the only opportunities to weigh in, but those are important ones. There will be surveys, there will be other community input events. So please engage in the process because these are your schools and it's their future. We've tried to push the word out for this as much as we can. We have a newsletter, we've done a media push, we've done that through the towns, we've done that through the schools, we've done that through social media. We've had a banner put up on our website that like literally every page on the website you click through, this banner comes up. So there are no excuses for missing these dates. Again, the strategic planning process itself, whatever plan we come up with, the process is really important. So I would ask people to engage in it. So, budget. One of the priorities that I remembered and took to heart from the board retreat was that the voice of the staff is very important to the board, and rightly so, in identifying priorities for the budget. So I've been thinking about that and talking with our team about how to develop some procedures that give the staff meaningful opportunities to weigh in on what the priorities that should frame the budget from their point of view should be. So one of the things that I feel I need to emphasize as I talk about this is that we are actually not starting from scratch with this, because our administrators and directors already do have and have had mechanisms to get input from their staff. And one of the steps that I've asked those folks to do to start us off is to codify those for me. In other words, to write down, okay, how is it that what is your standing practice of getting your staff's input? And then we'll take a look at that and see where we might be able to do better, but we'll also be able to inform the board about what those practices are. We're also planning to add a few other steps. So later this month, we're going to be scheduling voluntary listening sessions at each school where the staff from the school these would be after school, not included in regular staff meeting time. The staff can come to provide their perspective about budget priorities. And I framed a series of questions, 4 questions that are very broad that would frame those conversations. And the questions are, in a nutshell, what strengths do we need to maintain? What challenges do we face? Where should we grow? And where could we find efficiency? And the staff will have an opportunity to weigh in on that, and then we'll also have a survey. Part of that, however, is that we need to acquaint everyone from the board to the community to the staff about the pressures we face with the budget. And we talked a little bit about that at our board retreat. So I have a little information to share now about that, and more will be coming, but it's important for us all to know that this year, the budget is the overall district budget is approximately $44.5 million. And by far the largest part of the budget is wages and benefits. They're well more than half the budget. That's true in every school district. That's just the nature of education. So our negotiated contracts for wages and benefits that we already have are going to go up by 8.6% next year. And because wages and benefits are by far the biggest part of the budget, that means when wages and benefits go up 8.6%, the overall budget goes up 7.1%. That's without figuring anything else in. And some of the other things that we will likely have to think about are, we have not yet negotiated a contract for our support staff. Everybody out there is talking about anticipating that healthcare costs, health insurance costs are going to go up again. The price of everything going up again. And given what we went through earlier this year with federal funding, which thankfully all came out fine in the wash, we don't know what's going to happen with that this year. So there are unknowns. So that's just, I think, an important piece for everyone to know going into it. Those are factors that we know about. That should not stop us from being aspirational. It shouldn't stop us from thinking about new things that we might want to do, but it's a big part of the puzzle. So I'll pause for a minute if anybody would like to ask a quick question about that. Hearing none. So again, the intent here is to make sure that there's transparency in this process, and we're all working with common information, and then everyone's voice can be heard in a meaningful way. Another part of that puzzle that I forgot to mention, but I should, is when I say the overall budget would go up 7.1%, where does that fit in historically? So if we were to go back 10 years in time and look at how the budget has increased over time, what we find is an inverted bell curve. And if I go back to before COVID, let's say the mid-2010s, budget increases were going down. In other words, the percentage that the budget went up each year was going down each year. Then we got to COVID, and it bottomed out because we had a bunch of federal grant money, COVID relief money, that was temporary, that came along, and then over a few years got spent. And that happened to coincide, as we all know who have lived in this country, with inflation. So the COVID money was going away, inflation was going up, and budgets in schools, not just here, but everywhere, started to increase again, and the rate of the increase started to accelerate. So to put that in perspective, last year and the year before were the two biggest years of budget increase. So last year it was a 6.48% increase. The year before that it was a 6.83% increase. And of course, how much of that you felt as an individual taxpayer depended upon which town you were in and how that computed to your individual town's share of the budget. So we are already looking at the moment at a 7.1% increase without all the factors being weighed. So another factor that we consider in this is the enrollment. And basically, one of the things that I've uncovered that this district experienced in recent memory was an influx of, was a spike in enrollment, but that spike then went down. That was largely due, as I understand it, to an influx of new Mainers who moved into the community, but many of those folks, not all, but many have moved out. So if we keep that in mind, the enrollment has basically been flat with very minor fluctuations, and the best guess we have right now is it's going to continue to be flat for the next handful of years, like a fraction of a percentage point off here and there. So enrollment also determines state funding, and it determines how big our classes are. It drives a lot of decisions. So these are some factors that we will be considering as we look at the budget. So there's a lot going on as I transition into this role. These are some of the new things. I want to emphasize again, the strategic planning process is very important to the district, and I hope people buy in. And I'll stop there.
Any questions on what we've heard so far? Kelly.
I just wanted to thank you for being forthright about all of this early on so that we have a lot of time to think about it ahead of time. I know this is going to be probably one of our biggest challenges this year, and so I just appreciate you being very honest and open about it.
All right. Yeah, I feel like once I have some time to digest some of these enrollment numbers, I might have some questions specifically around like pre-K, what's happening there, because that's an interesting, that seems to be the biggest shift from what we thought to what we got. And I know that's always a hard guess,
That's
right?
the hardest one to guess.
Because we don't know them yet, right? They haven't
Right.
been here yet. But that's interesting, yeah.
The good news is, you mentioned pre-K. So the good news is that our enrollment for pre-K is solid in that we have decent class sizes. I mean, at Mass Landing, we have an average class size of 13.75. At Pownell, it's 8. At Durham, it's 11.7. The maximum class size for a pre-K classroom is 16.
And that's a teacher and an ed tech.
And you have to have 2 adults in there.
Yep.
You have to have 1 adult per 8 students. So we're doing fine in terms of enrollment with pre-K.
Great. Okay. Thank you. All right. Do you want to go through the resignations and hires?
Sure.
I know that was in our packets.
It is. So I don't know if it's been past practice to read out all the names, but you have in your packet on a green piece of paper a list of summer staff hires. And for those who are new, it's the practice in this district that over the summer months when the board is not meeting, that the superintendent is empowered to do hires without the board. So for most of the summer, that was Gene Scarappa, and since August 18th, that's been me. So you have a list here of the people that had been hired over the summer and a list of resignations.
And maybe this isn't fair to throw at you, and I know Kelly's not here, who usually keeps the running list, but in terms of openings, how are we feeling about, are we pretty well staffed for our openings? Are there still spots?
There are still some spots, but all things considered, we're pretty good. The hardest area we've been having is ed techs. And, we have several positions, and don't ask me to get too specific about it without digging into my laptop, but, we have several positions for which, like, there are postings for 1 or 2 ed techs in a school, but we actually have maybe 3 vacancies, and it's not worth posting the third one because we have 2 postings out there that, we don't have any candidates for. But we continue to search for people.
Thank you. All right. So we do not have any, we're easing everybody back into our regular board meetings here. We don't have any administrative reports. We don't have any board reports or committee reports because most committees haven't met yet. We don't have a policy review yet. So we will move on to unfinished business. And the first thing we are going to undertake is the work plan. This was originally on our retreat agenda, but as usual, we sometimes struggle to get to that item because we spend lots of time talking about other things in that retreat. So in an effort to give it the time it deserves, I will tell you, I think Ginny originally had this on the agenda for 10 minutes. I laughed at her. I was like, do you know us? What are you talking about? So, so in your packets is the draft work plan. And what this includes so far is kind of the standing items that we talk about every year. So, we try to get an update from each of the school administrators and each of the directors around their goals for the year. Usually the school administrators will tell us like how their beginning of school has gone, those types of things. Those are all in here. We do have a few other items already kind of plugged in terms of the work plan. As we mentioned, the cell phone usage is on there for the next meeting in September. I also noticed the multilingual learner update is in here in October. There was some discussions. I think Erica had mentioned something about providing a presentation to the board. Now I'm trying to remember exactly what it was relative to. I believe it was a curriculum does anybody remember from the retreat? It was a great idea.
Chapter 104. We just gaped.
Oh, I was like, what? Okay. So, so the practices in the district around our GATE programming. Obviously, the strategic plan is in here in a variety of places, as well as the budget process so far. So, one of the things that we try to do is provide information to the board around, things that are happening within the district that we might not see at a surface level. Some more detailed information. We have had presentations about social emotional supports that are in the schools, talking about the social workers, the counselors, what do we have that's available? What are kids accessing? Those types of things. We've had presentations on pretty much anything you can think of. And we want to make sure that the board feels informed about what's happening in the district, all the great work that's happening. These presentations also can provide an opportunity to highlight maybe something that we'd like to be doing better and to give the board sort of that initial look to say like, hey, this is what we're doing now. This is some gaps we're seeing. So just be prepared when we come back, usually around budget time, with how we're going to propose filling those gaps or things like that. I think maybe the other thing we had talked about was the review of was it around sort of consistency of programming across the different towns and districts and schools, not districts, but towns and schools to make sure that we're looking at sort of the equity piece. We talked about that a lot during the budget process. I feel like maybe that was something that Erica had mentioned. What did she say? Yes, MTSS, right. So multi-tiered systems of supports, the replacement for RTI for folks at home who may have just figured out what RTI means. Now we're moving on to MTSS. So
It's always a new acronym.
yes, yes.
One other thing that I would strongly recommend we consider in the work plan, probably early, is that we need to talk about the requirement from CDS that school districts assume responsibility for providing FAPE, free and appropriate public education, to preschool age children.
Right. So that I don't think is picked up anywhere yet in
Right.
here, right? But that is one that I think, it's new, and it's not effective yet, but it's coming pretty quickly.
We have to plan for it.
Right. So, but it is something that I think we will see in budget cycles in the, if not this year, soon after that. So understanding what does that mean? What is it? What are the implications? Not that we have to have it all figured out and solved yet, because I think that might be a bit of a Herculean task at this point without more information, but at least to get it on everybody's radar, so that we're ready for those conversations when they do require us to take action. Okay. So CDS.
Mm-hmm.
I think this draft work plan has most of the requests for presentations that we have heard over the last year, but maybe not. Okay, what was another one?
What about student leadership? I think we've talked about that in the past. I mean, Phoebe's a good person to ask that, but I enjoyed their presentation.
And she's leaving.
She's leaving. Bye-bye, Phoebe. I think it's good to hear from the
Yep.
students, and I think that would be great if we get the high schoolers to definitely do it maybe once, maybe twice would be nice, I think. But how about some of the other schools too? Can the middle school kids present something? Do they have that ability?
I'm trying to think if they have any kind of groups that, they don't even, I guess I don't know this for the middle school, but I don't believe Durham does
Do they
even
have a
like
student council?
Student council. Do they? At FMS?
I know that Mass Landing
Yeah.
definitely does, so that could be an option, at least for that school.
Yeah.
I don't know that FMS does.
Does not. Okay. And I don't think Durham does either, for the middle school component. I definitely think, some sort of involvement or presentation from that leadership team here at the high school is a great idea. I'm going to say that I think we're going to definitely be pulling them into the cell phone usage debacle. I don't know. Is that the right word?
Let's be optimistic. Rich discussion.
I think that was optimistic.
I was going to say that was the best word I could come up with. Thank you. Because I think, one thing, I forget. Oh, I think it was actually the group in the community for the responsible use for I forget their full name, but the folks that reach out to us about the use of technologies in our schools, those types of things. One of the things they provided us had some great links to how other districts, kind of their process and learnings, and what went well, what didn't, and it does seem like the inclusion of the student body, particularly at the high school level, is key to successful implementation, regardless of which way you go. So I hope that our process will include that as a key part of the process. So, yes.
On that note, I was wondering if it would make sense to have the cell phone usage discussion be the following meeting when the middle school and the high school are here to give updates and goal reviews.
That's not a bad idea since they'll already be here. Yeah.
That might be a good place if we move cell phones to talk about CDS.
Right. While we have more street. Yeah.
Yep.
Is that provide enough time to put together because that's the other thing I'm trying to be respectful of is the time it takes to put together these presentations. You know, we sit and listen for 20 minutes or so and ask questions for, you know, another 20 minutes or so. But I know that a ton of work goes into the background to prepare those presentations. So does that provide enough time? I mean, not that it has to be the most in-depth presentation we've ever seen, but is that enough to get us?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so we think CDS here on the 24th, and then, the cell phone.
I guess I would advocate for having having a designated presentation for the student leadership that isn't connected to cell phone usage.
Yeah.
That'll be great to have them involved on that, but I would rather give them an opportunity to say, all right, like, in terms of student leadership, what do you want to talk about? What do we need to know? What does the district need to know? Rather than just have it.
No, I 100% agree with that. Yeah, because I know that, I mean, in prior years, they've had sort of like groups within the group that have focused on a variety of different things. I don't know what those things, maybe you guys don't know what those things are yet this year.
Off the top of my head, I feel that like the December 1st meeting and just the only meeting in December.
I was to say, there's only one in December.
Yeah. That might be a good fit.
A good spot there. And does that give I'm looking at Phoebe because she's on this group. Does that give you guys enough time to, one, figure out your goals and plans for the year, and two, come up with something you could present to us?
Yeah, so I don't want to speak for my whole team here, but I will. December 10th, I think, would be a good time. So our typical trajectory is in the December time, we are kind of in the middle of our conversation recordings. So we're like really like hosting all these different conversations about whatever we choose. We don't have that topic yet. Our first meeting's tomorrow. So we can give you like a mid-year update during that time. I think in the spring we could give like a whole year update, but our work is usually cutting pretty close to the last day of school.
When do you have a spirit week or anything like that?
We do
Homecoming?
Yeah.
First week of October?
Yes. And I think we do one. No, yeah, that's it.
I think there might be one in the spring.
Yeah, maybe. Depending on if we do a spring dance. That isn't promised.
Right. Is homecoming really Friday this year?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So yeah, but I honestly think our team like can put together whatever we can at the time. If you pencil us in, I think it actually might be helpful to like have something we're like working towards, and like we have to get to this spot by this time. So wherever you feel like you can put us, I think it has in the past been very valuable for the team to come here and present, because we feel like, you know, we're being listened to. It helps us get our work out to like the broader community. So if you are willing to have us, I think the team would be very excited to present.
So maybe May 6th, so that's after we've adopted the budget, so all of the budget sort of deliberations are done. We have our Q&A, but then there's not a huge agenda of items on the 6th. Does that work? Because that's kind of, you don't want to do it at the annual budget meeting, and then the last two tend to get a little busier at the very end, so. What's that? Is it?
Yes.
It is.
It is around AP exam time, but in the past, it's kind of been like, yes, we will be prepping during our meetings for this presentation, but in terms of like the actual presentation, I feel like it's been like less than 20 minutes before I feel confident that they will like prioritize it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, why don't we put it in, and then, you know, if you guys are getting to that point when everyone's hair is on fire and you're like, we can't do this, then let's talk about it.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. They're going to be really happy to hear.
Okay, so December 10th and May 6th. And you will share that with your team. No, December 10th, that was like sort of your mid-year one, or you're saying that you prefer to just do it in May, you think? Why don't you go talk to them tomorrow and see how they're feeling and let us know. Perfect. We would love to hear from you twice, but we know you guys have very full plates, so. Okay.
This is, I think, more of a question, but I'm just thinking about the work plan and thinking about past years and kind of how I guess kind of the arc of kind of like what we work on or what we learn about. And I guess I'm wondering, especially this year where we don't have we're sort of out of strategic plan. Like there's nothing we're executing in terms of a strategic plan that we established, we finished that cycle. So we're a little limbo-y on that, but yet we're moving toward, or we're in the process of developing the next strategic plan. I guess I'm just wondering, I guess kind of like what the goal reviews will really be at a kind of macro level, like kind of what they're going to be about. Because I would think I'm sort of thinking back in a year where we're in the midst of a strategic plan, I think there'd be some sense that the goals are like, how are we doing toward that, or kind of like, and I guess that's just sort of a general question. And I guess the other question is just, is there a way that we could make use of those without giving extra labor to the admin staff to use those sort of as part of the strategic planning process for the board? In other words, sort of a way of kind of understanding, like, these are the things we're thinking about. Like, these are the things we're currently, like, here's a snapshot of what we're working on, and these are the things that are important to us. We're not quite sure where this is going to go, but I don't know if either those things make sense.
The way that kind of sits with me at the moment is that as we're shaping the new plan and we're detached from the outcome and we don't know what that will be yet, I do think we're in this limbo area where the building's goals that come forward are somewhat free-floating. But my hope and expectation would be that next year, once we have the plan, the building goals would have a clear link to the overall strategic plan. And I say that they're free-floating. I would be highly surprised if the goals that come forward from the schools are just completely out in left field. I've seen the high school's goals. They are all
their own
about
strategic plan.
They do, which came out of which is an interesting configuration. But Jen explained how that came about to me the other day, and they're going after good things that we would all agree make sense. I haven't heard from the other principals yet about their specific goals, but I will be over the course of the next month or two. So, I think my recommendation at the moment would be to, as the principals come forward and share their school goals, to ask good questions about how they may have aligned with the strategic plan in the past. And, they will know that in the future we have to make explicit connections.
And I mean, I don't know, I guess to your point of being detached from the outcome, I would be surprised if our next strategic plan was completely divergent from the one we've been working through for the past several years. I imagine it's an extension and an expansion of that. So,
one would hope.
Yes, we're going completely in a different direction. I just pulled up the email that Anna had sent, and then also Kelly had sent some additional ones around ideas. Some of these I think we have captured. The CDS kind of pre-K piece. I think Kelly mentioned major curriculum changes from the equity lens. I think that's a good one. I think that's what I was recollecting from our retreat. So I don't know where folks are feeling about that one. If that's one that we want to find a place for. And then the other two that jumped out at me is sort of the AI technology piece. Mm-hmm. As well as PD. That was the other item that popped up in some of those emails. So
Yeah, and I was wondering if some of these could be captured within the building goal reviews, for example, when our building administrators come up, they can talk about what kind of PD they're doing inside their building, so we don't necessarily need a separate
Right.
Yeah.
session. just
Right,
for
that's
that.
a way to capture kind of, because I know in the past, we had, for example, we had a year where every goal update we got from a building administrator, we didn't have a specific presentation for all the districts, but each one we said, everyone was dealing with attendance in some form or fashion. So how are they dealing with that? What was their approach? So maybe something similar to that. Same with DEI, right? We were like, what are each of the schools, regardless of the grade span of the school, doing within their schools around that? Student voice is another one. We said, hey, sort of a prompt that we gave every administrator when they presented their goals was make sure you key in on that. So maybe PD could be kind of the prompt we look for from them this year. How does that feel to people? That sound works for you?
Absolutely.
Okay. So I think we have CDS baked in. We have cell phones. I imagine cell phones is probably going to be more than one meeting, but we'll build it in there first.
Yeah, I guess just on that, maybe if we just linger for a second to say what we mean when we talk about cell phone. Like when we put that on the work plan, like what do we mean by that? Like, are we saying at that meeting, which we moved it up, right, or back? Where did we move
October
it?
8th. Yep.
October 8th, right? I mean, that seems sort of early enough to kind of, I don't know, be kind of like laying out a plan, like talking about whether a plan is needed. Because I think I want to just make sure we kind of continue on from our conversation last spring, where one of the things that we kind of came to was with the understanding that, yes, it's very important to have engagement from all of the different stakeholders. There's at least some opinion on the board that there's not a whole lot new to be learned about what the options are. So I guess I just want to make sure when we're saying, like, this is part of the work plan, like, what does that mean? And I know that we're required by the state to have a policy about cell phones, so that's slated in.
I think you could say that's maybe the genesis.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of
we need to put this on. We have to have a policy by July 1st.
Right, and that, I mean, I think we can start working on that I guess, slightly agnostically, in terms of saying, well, if we had to write a plan about what, this is what what's our policy currently, we can articulate that and put that on paper. But yeah, I guess, like, what do we mean when we say we're going to talk about cell phones in October?
Yeah, I mean, I think was it our last meeting? No, it was I think our second to last meeting in June. I went back and rewatched that meeting to refresh my memory on our conversation there. I think there was a couple things. There was some folks that were going to do some work around finding out costs of options if we chose to go. Yep. Mm-hmm. Or alternatives to those, just so we know what those look like. I think Anna's point in her email was a good one. I don't think we had full feedback from the staff around their preference of next steps. I think that's key. Maybe Phoebe can throw something else on their agenda tomorrow for the student leadership team to start you guys brainstorming around, collecting feedback or thoughts or, procedurally how we might move forward.
Yeah, like, are you wanting us to, like, go forward with, like, hosting conversations, or, like, provide, like, the kind of templates we go by that, like, students know already, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe you guys can just start preparing for the fact that we're probably going to be tapping you to solicit, whether it's feedback from the students or whether it's your, your thoughts on the best way for us to share information with the students about a change like this. You know, kind of I would envision a two-way conversation there, right? I think we have a pretty, to Colin's point, I think we have a pretty good idea of what the general feedback is going to be when we say, hey, what do you think? But maybe, you know, some thoughts around, you know, what might a communication program look like to you know, share the whys, you know, I think that was the other piece we talked about in June. Was it sounded like there was potentially some really good speakers that might be good to start the process with around, like, why is this important, right? So I would love to hear more about that on October 8th, right? Is that feasible? Is it, you know, $50,000 to get the person here and that's not, you know, yeah.
It seems to me, just having, I mean, I wasn't here for the previous parts of this conversation, but it seems to me that October 8th, you probably want to decide as a board whether you're still in listening mode or whether you're in talking mode. Are you at the point where you're still seeking information to inform how you feel, or do you have enough? I think I heard Colin say at a certain point you've learned a lot already. Don't know how much more there is to learn. And I think that one question, are you still listening or are you talking, will help you decide what you want to do on that day.
Valerie.
So I did not watch this previous conversation, so I'm coming in fully blind. I'll
Send out the date of that meeting with the link so folks
Thank you.
that didn't
That would
see
be
it
wonderful.
and the time hacks, you don't have to watch the whole thing.
That said, do we have a way to reach out to districts who have already implemented solutions to see how that's going for them?
Yeah, I mean, you know, we know who they are, so it could, and I think there's been some sharing of information.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say on that I mean, I think part of the impetus for even having this conversation is that the vice principal at the high school was like, we talked to Bath, and it's working really well not having cell phones in the high school. And so I think that is I would say that's a large data point. That's not the only one that we could look at or should look at. But I think it's just important to acknowledge that I think that was one of the precipitating pieces of information.
And I wonder if they have a counterpart to our leadership group that our leaders might, just to get, because I would imagine that the teachers and the administration are happy with that, but we also want to make sure that we are, and not to say that it would necessarily say, oh, geez, the kids are, you know, unhappy that they can't use their phones during the day, so we should just scrap the whole idea. We do have to make a decision at some point, but it might help us understand, like, is there a better way to implement it? Is there a better way to message it? Or is it just prepare? Yeah, I don't know if Phoebe's hand's up or she's, yeah, and then I'll go to Steph.
I would say, like, to Superintendent Gray's question of, like, are we done listening? I would feel pretty strongly that I think there's still some more information to be gotten. Not necessarily about, like, our phones bad. I think we're feeling pretty, like, solidly there. But in terms of, like, the hows and the who's and the whens, I think getting student feedback is going to help, even if you don't even take any of it. Showing students in any situation, like showing students you're listening and you want to know, I think it's going to help with the buy-in. But I wouldn't, like, discount, like, what the high school and even the middle school students would have to say, because from the conversations I hear in class and in the hallways and in the lunchroom, like, people have a lot of different opinions, and I don't think they're all like a punk, like, high school kid. Like, I do think that people, like, we know, but I think you could get a lot of good information. And then I also think that communication with other schools and maybe getting some, like, actual, like, other than just hearing, like, Bath is doing great, hearing some, like, either some, like, real data points or, like, testimony from teachers, because we know that is like a big thing is we don't really, in terms of like the bags, like teachers don't want to be like having to enforce other policies. So like hearing from teachers in districts who have had other policies that don't require as much like teacher enforcement, hearing from them, maybe hearing from some students. Yeah, I think there is still some more information to be gotten.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. Thank you, Phoebe. Just like what are the concerns around it, right? And maybe there's ways to meet those needs. But if we don't even know that it's a concern or a need, then how do we address it? So thanks for that. Steph.
I attended the MSBA regional meeting last night, and two representatives from other districts, Raymond, Wyndham, and York, just implemented policies as well. And there was talk that MSBA is going to put together like draft sample policies of like varying kinds, and they'll be made available. So I think that could be another resource to consider. And some of those folks from those schools were willing to share what they've done and information. So it seems that like there's dialogue that's starting to be shared amongst districts as well. That might be helpful.
Yeah, those MSBA regional meetings might be a really good, because I don't know if you found it to be helpful, but I have in the past. I wasn't able to join last night, but people, they're just other board members, and people are really happy to share, what's working for them, what's not working for them. And York and Wyndham, Raymond, were those full bell-to-bell bands?
Bell-to-bell bands for both of them.
Interesting.
Yeah, they started when school started this fall. So they both, school board members, not students, they both reported that it was reported as successful in the, 2 weeks that we've been back. But yeah, so.
Kara?
Yeah, I agree that we're still in listening mode for a bit, and would love to hear more from the students here and from students in other schools and from the teachers in the other schools as well. So that's the information that I would like to continue to receive, and that if there's a way that we could make that happen on the 8th, I think that would be helpful. I know that's the policy committee will be looking at our work plan on tomorrow, and I don't recall where the cell phone piece falls on that, if it's there yet, but yeah, and so that committee will be looking at a variety of policies in that process, but I think would be really helpful to hear how those policies are being implemented and how it's working.
Yeah. And not that I want to make him come to another meeting, but it might be helpful to have Will also for that conversation, if our plan is to have Pam and Jen from the high school and FMS, because I do think it's important that, obviously there's a variety of schools this impacts. Not so much the younger grades, although maybe it does, I don't know. But certainly the middle schools and the high school. So.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking in terms of the actual work plan, if it would make sense, since it sounds like we do have a lot of information we could still yet gather, if we used that October 8th meeting as sort of the listening piece, and then we schedule another session somewhere later in our work plan the talking piece.
Or preparing for the talking piece.
Yeah, as we think about policies and procedures.
Yeah, and I think I want to thank you, Phoebe, for articulating the importance of that, and I think I stand kind of, I'm going to say, sort of morally corrected on the sort of importance of that, and I didn't mean to suggest that we don't need to hear more voices. We do, I think. So I think we are still in listening mode. I think probably what I'm realizing I meant was that I think the board knows why we are talking about it, like that we kind of know that what we are concerned about is the social and emotional well-being of our students, and the quality of the educational experience that they are receiving. So I think that again, perhaps I'm assuming too much, but I think that is where at least I'm coming from. So I think that if that's true, I think that maybe is an important thing for us to talk about at that October 8th. It's sort of like, well, why are we even having this conversation? And sort of being able to say to the community, but also to be able to say to the students, these are our concerns, and this is why we are considering a bell-to-bell ban, right? And sort of, it's not because like, how did you put it, Phoebe, that cell phones are bad? Like, yeah, they are, but like that's not the reason. Like, that's not the reason we're doing it, or that's not the reason we're exploring it. We're exploring it because we care about these particular the impacts of them on the students in a couple ways. So again, I don't know who is the appropriate person to articulate that or kind of to like share that. I don't know if that's you, Superintendent Gray. I don't know if that's one of the guests, the possible guest speakers that we spoke about. But I don't know. I think that should be something that is voiced by someone who can really speak to the importance of that and why we're even talking about it.
I think it's probably me with input from the team.
Okay. Phoebe.
Sorry, I know it's kind of dragging this one point out, but I
got us 45 minutes on the agenda. We can use it.
I kind
-7.
of have an idea for the whole cell phone like conversation. I think maybe I could be a liaison to the high school at least, and I'm curious if I were to organize a group of high school students, maybe they could, just keep it in their mind, start thinking about it, maybe meet together, have a informal conversation, and then come to the October 8th meeting. Maybe they'll share out public comment to start, or maybe they'll listen to y'all's conversation, choose to share, maybe at the end, maybe not. Just like a group, like a kind of focus group of students. It could be the student leadership team, but I think from what I've seen with the polarization of this topic, especially with high schoolers, I think I would be able to find a lot of different types of students who'd be willing to help with this work and like have a say in it. So I'm curious if that's something people would be interested in, like just getting a group of high school students like starting to think, and maybe it could form up a little more later on once we start talking more formally about it.
I love that idea.
Yeah.
Good
Liaison
thing-
Phoebe.
Good thing I accidentally got a Canva premium account, so I can make some posters.
Accidentally.
I might hit you up because I need to get better at Canva. So.
Well, I have it till next month, so.
So, bearing in mind Kelly's comment, might I suggest for the November 5th meeting, we put in a follow-up?
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to let it
Linger too long.
too long.
And the other thing I was thinking about, and maybe this is just sort of a standing thing that we can put, maybe it doesn't need to be on the work plan, but the strategic plan doesn't pop into here until June 3rd, right? I think we probably maybe want some kind of intervening updates.
Sure.
So I don't know if it needs to be in here or it can be just sort of.
We could certainly put it in here. I can also promise you it will be in my updates to you.
Mm-hmm.
And a number of folks are participating in that.
Yeah, and which I think is super great and valuable, and I appreciate everybody who's spending their time doing that. But I also think it's important for community members to kind of hear that update, and they don't. I mean, while they could look at the weekly updates we get, I think we surprisingly get a lot of people that watch these meetings.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be fooled by the empty seats. They're watching from home on the couch with popcorn.
Did he mean his updates in the beginning of the
Oh.
meeting?
Well, I meant, my weekly updates to you, but also my superintendent's reports.
Yeah, so maybe we just sort of make it like a standing item once a month on the superintendent's update, just for where we are with the strategic plan. And
Absolutely can do.
yeah, great. Anything else that's jumping out at folks?
I would like to visit AI conversation at least once, and to Colin's point about the cell phone item on the agenda, what would that look like? Would we be in learning mode, or would we be in talking mode? What would that look like? We might need to have that on here more than once.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know about everybody else on the board, but I would certainly be still in learning mode. I don't feel like I know nearly enough to weigh in on where I think we need to go with that. Yeah, maybe that's a good one for Sam.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
You know, I don't want him to feel neglected on the work plan here at all.
Absolutely not. So February 25th is a budget review. Technology is part of that. December 10th. Yep.
Michelle, I almost feel like that's a curriculum issue too.
It is.
So maybe that would be one that he might want to share with our assistant superintendent.
Yep. Yeah, how they
Yep.
come together.
He's also on December 10th.
Yes.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing, Kelly. That I think I think again, I think what I'm primarily interested in on that is understanding how is AI impacting the schools currently. Like what are the different schools?
How are they addressing it?
How are they addressing it? How are they making
How are
use
they
of
using it?
How are they using it? I think that would be helpful to know, just kind of like a state of the state, and then a little bit of a sense from a curricular perspective, and maybe a little bit more broadly beyond, or maybe well beyond the district, of sort of like how are people talking about this? Like, I mean, I have read my own collection of things about AI and education, but to really understand from within the school, what kind of things are we thinking about, and should we be aware of, so that when it pops up on the strategic plan, which it will do,
Detached from the outcome.
detached from I don't know the answer, but like when it pops up, we sort of have some context for sort of like where's that coming from, and what are we trying to achieve with it, and that sort of thing.
Yep. So
on December 10th, I could ask Erica and Sam to collaborate on presentation around AI.
yeah, and then the only other one that we haven't really talked about that was the curriculum kind of overview that Erica had mentioned as she's sort of digging into all of the different curriculums that we're doing across the district, with the idea around sort of equity and what does that look like across the district. I don't know if that is too much to lump in with the technology and AI piece, or that is a separate day. Kind of feels like it's a separate day.
feel
Yeah,
like
I
it's
think
a
it's a
separate
separate
day.
day. That's a big.
It's big.
That's a lot.
So, and I don't know how much time that one takes for her to, I know she dove in deep starting on July 1st.
It might not be bad to put that on
12:01 a.m., but
January 14th.
Okay.
So we have, progress on district goals, the district scorecard, the high school program of studies. It
Yep.
might be a good fit.
Yep. Yeah, actually, with the district scorecard, that's probably a great spot to put that. And that just reminds me of something else that we have seen. I'm trying to remember if it was on this year's board eval or not, but we've certainly seen it in prior years, sort of this thought that we only get sort of that district update score once a year. And I don't know what's a better way to accomplish that, how we get more frequent updates, or if the data is so massive that really once a year is the best we're going to get, right? Because there's lagging and, those sort of things. But, and tell me if I'm completely off base, and we've never heard that in the feedback, but I feel like we have. Yeah.
I wonder if Erica has any ideas, actually, on how to present that information. I know, she's...
Yeah.
She's over by the cookies. She's keeping track of how many cookies we all eat.
Hi, so Erica Mazzeo, Assistant Superintendent.
Welcome, Erica. Also,
Thank you.
and I welcomed our new board members, but not our new superintendent and assistant superintendent.
Yeah.
So welcome to everyone.
Thank you. So the question specifically is with regard to what beyond the sort of curriculum study? Is there something else that you're looking for?
One of the things we've heard is just sort of a more maybe frequent, but I don't know what the right frequency is.
Yeah.
Just kind of overview of where we are. So we have this right now in
Yeah.
our work plan. We have this district
Yeah.
scorecard that we
Yeah.
look at once a year.
Yeah.
And we all have to remind ourselves, like, what do these mean? What is growth?
Yeah.
All those things. I don't know if there is a different, more holistic,
Yeah.
maybe not so data driven. I don't know.
Yeah. So growth data versus achievement data versus some sort of social emotional indicators or climate and culture pieces. Not everything is a thing we're currently studying or following or measuring. So some of it might be we'd like to learn more about these areas or have some more universal or standard measures. My recommendation would be that we do a beginning and end of year data debrief so that you know what is the growth looking like, where is the starting place, and then where is the delivery at the end of the year. So as we set about our summer work and our planning for the year to come, like how we have, how we've delivered in the year prior and how we are establishing those goals and priorities based on the data and areas we see as identified needs or opportunities for growth. Yeah, and all of that will fall into that broader context of MTSS structures and our cut scores and all the pieces. So some of it's soft with our climate and culture pieces, and some of it's a little bit more traditional academic achievement and so-called growth. And I can get into the whole growth indicator thing in more depth at some other point.
We'll need a refresher. I do every year, so I'll apologize up front. You have to tell me every year.
There's a lot to it.
But yeah, like the climate and culture one, I don't think that's ever anything we've ever gotten in the past. So, I think everything you said sounds great. I don't necessarily think it's fair to throw a beginning of year one at you.
I could probably give you something pretty surface level for beginning of year if that's of interest. Just tell me when. And
Okay.
then we'll be looking at recommendations for other pieces, I'm sure. Yeah.
Okay. I think we're throwing, yeah.
Yeah, just on that while you're still up there, Erica, I think I'd love that idea of having something at the beginning and something at the end, both because I just like that arc, but I think I'm realizing I would love to have as many moments this year when we can have an integration between an understanding of where are we right now, and as we're moving toward both the budget for next year and we're also moving toward the strategic plan, to have a little bit more of a sense of how do those pieces fit together. Because I think honestly, I don't often have a feeling going into budget season that I really understand kind of the link between sort of some of the educational indicators or that and where the budget has, again, not that the budget was only in relation to that, but I think as many points as we could kind of integrate those things or have sort of connections would be excellent.
Supporting each other.
Yes, support each other.
Next meeting might be a good opportunity for just a surface level. If you feel
Sure.
like time, Erica.
Yeah. It feels important, yeah.
So that's also where we put CDS. Is that, because I feel like that's going to be you too, right? That's both of you guys together on
Yeah.
that one. So we're not trying to drive anybody, off the edge too early in the year.
Eh.
So welcome. Here you go. If you guys think that's doable for the 24th, great. If not, we'll figure out a spot for it.
I think it works.
Next
Yeah.
meeting.
Okay. Anything else that yeah, Steph.
I wanted to revisit the conversation about the Strategic Communications Committee and its role of what understood it to be board to public communication or district to public communication, but it doesn't seem like that's what it's been historically. Yeah, and so that kind of comes from like my own surprise at that, and also just in kind of going through the budget process at the tail end last year for the first time, how, and this is more like, you know, hearing in the community stuff of folks that I know that are really engaged with the school who still were experiencing confusion. And so to me, that tells me that we could maybe communicate better if the folks that really want to support us and like be here and come to the votes and all of those things are, and they're still confused. So I just kind of wanted to bring that up as a topic, and maybe it's through the strategic communications committee or something else. But especially hearing Tom's budget updates and knowing where we're going. And I think that that's like a really, and all these policies that are very contentious sometimes, I think that that's like a piece that could really help us have a smoother path for the year. If it's an option to consider or look at.
I'm chuckling because you've basically channeled the person who you replaced on the board. Like Candy's soapbox was like, communicate, communicate, communicate. Like we need to tell people more things. So I love that. I'm glad that that is not lost with her departure from the board. So thank you. Where did we come down on that committee? I felt like we decided it wasn't meeting and because of the strategic plan. Is that what we decided?
When we, yeah.
That's what I remember.
I was thinking, my recollection, which is always fuzzy.
This is the problem when we don't have
that-
video. We can go
Right.
back.
Were you going to email us a suggested meeting date? Kelly's nodding her head.
I think
Yeah,
we
I
went
think
back
where
and
we
forth.
left off was that we were going to defer to Tom, and he was going to have a little brainstorm session with himself about
What that meant was with Ginny.
or Jenny, and kind of determine what role and goals that committee might take this year.
I did actually, now that you say that, so I did go back the next day and talk with Ginny about it, and she had a lot to say about communication that's already happening. So I will revisit that with Ginny.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not on the committee, so I don't want to obligate people to time, but I do think it's important. And I do think the communication does go both ways with that committee. It's probably in the last few years been, well, the outward communication has mostly been the budget brochure, which rightly or wrongly, that's what it has been, to make sure we've been getting that out every year. And then the information in has been the various surveys, whether it's the parent survey or the staff survey on the alternating years. So I do think it is a two-way conversation vehicle, but it can always be better. And I do think your thought process around sort of thinking ahead to wanting to make sure that, you know, people who want to engage with us have the information they need to do it, and are there better ways to do it? I do sometimes think we get a little bit of, you know, over communication fatigue, like, well, every meeting is public, every meeting is videoed, we send stuff to everybody's email, we send stuff to their house, and, you know, there's, short of knocking on people's doors, you know, like, what else can we do? But that's not the right way to think about it. There are always other ways. So yeah, I would be really supportive of that committee meeting, even if it's just to brainstorm about other ways to communicate. Kara, and then I'll go to Kelly.
Yeah, I don't recall what questions are on the survey or are planned for the focus group right now for strategic planning. But I'm hopeful that this topic will bubble up and that we'll hear feedback from the community about how effective all these communication channels are. And it might even be helpful to have that list from Ginny of what is happening, what are we doing already. But
Do
the
they know
question
it's
really
available
is
to
it
them?
effective?
Yeah.
Right, that's what we want to know.
Yeah.
And if that, you know, if we can have a surface level data conversation in the strategic communications committee, that might be helpful.
No, I was just going to mention, I'm not really sure if we need a separate agenda item for this, but just because normally throughout the course of the year, we do have committees report out regularly. So if we define what the role of this committee is and we actually have some work to do, we'll be reporting that out throughout the year.
Yes, thank you for that. And that prompted something else to pop into my brain around wanting to ask folks that are on subcommittees, policy, finance, and facilities always have sort of a designated spot in those board committee updates. But I think we have committees that we don't hear from. Do people on other committees, would it be helpful if we scheduled, maybe not every month, but maybe twice a year, like Region 10 or DEI or the curriculum committee to report out? Okay. It's a little bit more challenging, I think, for the ones that don't meet regularly because we don't know where to put them on the calendar. So maybe we can get together and try and figure out when they are.
Sure.
And then we can slate them to make sure that they have a designated spot on the agenda. And I will try to do my best to remind folks that are on those committees that they're coming up for a report, so we don't surprise anybody in the meeting. Valerie.
I recently started following the town of Freeport on Instagram, and they literally are just disseminating information about the town. Like nothing, just like, hey, don't forget there's a 3-way stop happening soon. Hey, don't forget we're having the town council meeting tonight. I'm wondering if it could be something like that, leveraging a informational, not asking for opinions, this is what's happening, don't forget this kind of social media presence. Not that feedback isn't welcome, but maybe that's not the forum for it.
Right. Well, and on social media, it's actually pretty, this is my opinion, but it's also like other people's opinion. On social media, you don't want it to be two-way communication because bad things can come in, so.
Yeah, and if it is sort of a push out of information, we do have a social media, like we do have a Facebook page. I don't know if we have a Instagram page. It would be very simple to tie them together so it posts to both because I know not everybody has both. And so, there are, I don't know who's responsible for that. I don't know who posts to it. Ginny, okay. Ginny has a pretty full plate, so we'll think on that. Maybe we can get her some support in that. Are you volunteering, Colin? No. Okay.
I was going to volunteer you. 2 points. One is
Phoebe
that
has Canva Premium for a month, so.
Well, that's that's why I wanted to give you an opportunity because you're probably not on camera currently, so people can't see that you're working out a dance routine during the school board meeting.
It's
and I just wanted to make sure that you had felt like you had time to share that later. But second, perhaps this is a statement of bloody obvious, and everybody else knows this or knows that it is currently happening. But I guess I'm just realizing I don't know whether part of strategic communications remit is an analysis of effectively every communication that happens across the school between any part of the school and the public. Because I think when I think about strategic communications, that's what I think about is basically sort of like how did the letters that are being sent out from Mass Landing connect to later things that are sent out by Superintendent Gray, how does that connect to like sort of what's our overall strategy for how we're communicating with the public, and that the budget is then one piece of that, but it's not. So I guess in my mind, I don't think we need to do, as you say, we're doing a lot on the budget. I don't think that's for me, I don't think that's the particular issue. I think it's sort of a larger question of just like how are we communicating and how could we do that perhaps in a more integrated way and a more effective way.
I guess I just wanted to add I wanted to narrow my comment to like where I'm confused is like board communication to the public, right? And that's I think something that we all have, or that has felt like, even though the information is out there, that sometimes it's not landing in the way that we would hope or that we would expect or that we would like. And so maybe there's something that could be done there. And I don't know if that's within the scope of the committee, but...
we can make the scope of the committee.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And then it comes back to the philosophical question of like the fact, what should we be communicating to the public? Like what is our role? right? I mean, we certainly want people engaged in the budget process because that is their role to play in that, is the vote, right? And that's why we want to make sure people are informed and have the information they need to make an informed vote. But then, you know, is it our job to reach out and share other things, right? Like where we want their feedback around, say something like the strategic plan, it is, right? Because that we run that process and we solicit the feedback. Yeah, that's an interesting question.
There is an argument to be made that it strengthens the district for the public to know more broadly what's happening in the schools. And, you know, what a number of districts that I have known have turned to is actually somebody who's taking this on as a primary role, not just doing it off the side of their desk. And as the world of communication becomes more complex, you know, there are arguments to make that investment, but that's an investment to think about in the context of every other investment you want to make. With, you know,
7.1%.
going up 7.1%.
Right.
So,
I mean, that when I think of this, what makes me want to pursue that more as a board member is when I hear us talking about why we want the high school students and other students to have buy-in with the cell phone policy, is because then it feels like we're collaboratively making a policy choice. And as we're heading into places where we're going to continue to see budget increases, having a greater collaboration with our communities feels like it would be useful to us as a board and as a district.
Yeah, it certainly doesn't hurt, right?
Yeah.
The more people know about what we're doing, that, you know, when all they see is 7.1 and they know nothing other than that, well,
there are amazing
it's
things
easy to make
happening
it-
in the schools.
Yeah.
And you know, most people it doesn't cross their radar.
Yeah, and just to be clear, that I think that's also part of what kind of what I meant about the strategic communication. As I'm sort of thinking about it, is like, yes, what does the board communicate about because it's not being communicated elsewhere, or what is the board communicating about because we really want to amplify something, and then what's not our lane because that is being handled by the superintendent's office, or that is being handled by the high school, or like, so just again to understand kind of like the full picture of that, to sort of know, oh, this is when these communications are going out, here's how they're integrated, here's how they reinforce each other, or here's how they contrast. I think like having an understanding of that would be really helpful.
I mean, all I'm saying, any posters, Instagram graphics, I get all of the gifts, like, I'm ready.
but only until next month when they charge her again. We got to get those done before October.
Isn't there a bus we can sell to like get her the account? Like,
We may have
did we sell that bus already?
we may have been talking about selling a gator today. I'm like, maybe we can get Phoebe to buy that. Stay tuned.
And then I have one more question.
Yeah.
With the sheet that's like all of the committees and the times that they meet and who's on them, will that be updated so that
I'm
we
sure
all
it
know
already
when
has
they're
been.
happening? Okay.
I'm guessing once we all changed who was on what, she probably did. And
I'm
as
pretty sure she did.
yeah, she's pretty speedy on that. Where it lives is a great question, other than on Ginny's computer. So maybe we can ask her to
Is it
share
on
that.
the website?
I don't know if it is,
Okay.
because it's really kind of a tool we built to make sure.
Okay.
I got confused at one point, like, what do we have to have? What is a choice that we have? We color coded them based on the amount of time effort, you know, like the Freeport cable TV one was green, and then negotiations for the teacher contract was, you know, bright red, you know, just in terms of time and stuff like that. So, anyway, so how do people feel about the work plan? I think we picked up student leadership once, maybe twice. We picked up CDS at the meeting on the 24th. AI and technology, we're going to tag that on for Sam in December 10th. Curriculum with sort of the equity lens is going to be a part of the district scorecard on January 14th. We'll capture the PD offerings when the administrators are doing their updates / goals when we hear from them in the fall. Cell phone, we put on twice, once on October 8th and then again on November 5th for a follow-up. Did I miss anything? Yeah.
Well, a couple of things. The AI and technology one, would that make sense to also ask the administrators to add to their reports, or is that too much? Since we were talking about how it'd be nice to know how each.
I don't know if they're all equipped to really give a lot on that right now.
And I think it could be something that Sam gathers as a part of what he's presenting. Kind of how we're using it. What's that?
And Erica.
Yes, and Erica, yeah.
Okay. And I think Erica had also mentioned GATE earlier. Is there something?
Oh,
that you'd like
yes.
to add?
Chapter 104.
And the MTSS.
You're just filling your own plate here, Erica.
Yeah, we could. It is a specific program written into statute, so I don't know if you want it bundled with MTSS or if you'd like to do it separately.
Does it, in my head they're different, but does it make sense to bundle them together?
So multilingual programming is separated. I would say keep it as two separate items, but potentially on the same night, if that makes sense. But
Okay.
Yeah.
So multilingual learners we have on October 22nd. And then did we say the MTSS piece would be part of that curriculum overview, or is that a separate?
I can do that at any point. Deeper in the year a little bit would offer maybe some more direction.
So March 11th is sort of a budget deliberation. So that's the only thing we have on that meeting. Not that we won't fill all those moments with exciting budget talk, but maybe it'd be good for us to have something else to think about.
Yeah.
Is that enough time into the year, you think?
It is. And then what about the chapter 104 at that point or at some other point?
Does it make sense to keep those two together on the 11th?
Yeah.
Okay. So March 11th, so MTSS and GATE.
Yeah.
Okay. Danielle, did I see your hand? You're good? Have we bitten off more than we can chew?
It's a lot.
We'll give you one out when you two get out of this meeting in the next couple of days and you look at this and you're like, oh my God, why did we agree to all that? We can revisit if we need to, but we'll put this, this seems like a great work plan in the meantime. Okay? Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to give everyone an update on my tiny group that I'm making. It's going to be called the Scoop Special Committee on Our Phones, and I'll lure them with ice cream. So they will be here.
OUP. SCOUP. Hour. I can't spell. Scoop. Okay. All right. So now that we've done all of this work plan, we are to the district goal, which I think it's in our folder, isn't it? Oh, it's literally on the. Yeah. It's on the agenda, but yeah, I think it's the same thing that's on that page. Yeah. To engage stakeholders in the community of RSU 5 in a comprehensive and inclusive process to collaboratively develop the 5-year strategic plan. I think Colin's previous concerns about sort of the lack of teeth of that being the whole district's goal for the year are understandable, but I will turn back to our work plan of lots of great work that will be done this year. That while we may not have a shiny, 4-goal bucket to like tag each one of these things to yet, progress will be made.
I think my I have a rewording suggestion for
Okay.
this one, because I feel like the board is responsible for more than engaging the stakeholders in this. I
True.
think, and I guess my question is the goal ultimately to develop or approve a strategic plan this year?
It is.
And rather than just engaging the stakeholders. So I would propose saying that our goal is to collaboratively develop or approve, whatever word we want to go with, a 5-year strategic plan through a comprehensive and inclusive process that engages stakeholders in the RSU 5 communities. I'm not adding too many words there. I'm really just moving
reordering them.
around.
Yeah.
But with the focus being on developing it and approving it, but also making it comprehensive and inclusive. Nothing mind-shattering.
I really like that.
Say that again, yeah. To collaboratively develop or.
Do I have a motion for consideration and approval for the RSU 5 district goal for 25-26 to? Here's where you say it.
To collaboratively develop or approve, whichever word we all agree on, a 5-year strategic plan through a comprehensive and inclusive process that engages stakeholders in the RSU 5 communities.
Develop and approve?
I would,
I like that.
Yeah, I think I like.
you're going to want to approve it.
Yep. Are you making that motion? Thank you. Second from Malik. So, motion from Kelly, second from Malik. Any other comments? Other than thank you for the rewording, Kara. I like that.
Yeah, I really like it. I think it really better defines what the goal actually is.
Yep.
It puts it front and center. Thank
Yep.
you, Kara.
My other note is, do we all like the word stakeholders, or do we want to change that to just people? That could be a whole conversation, but does anyone have any?
Carrie, have you ever considered joining the policy committee?
I like to reword.
You don't like stakeholders? I think everybody is a stakeholder in our district, right? Some may not see themselves as such, but
Do we want to change it to something like community members?
It's more than
I
community
really-
members, though.
Yeah,
It's
I
more
think-
than, it's
'Cause
a,
it's staff.
it's a
Yeah.
huge range of people,
Yeah.
and I think stakeholders
I like
is,
stakeholders,
yeah, I
yeah.
think it kind of gets everyone.
you think it's put offish or something? Okay.
Very much
For another-
Is it too corporate?
We're looking at the stakeholder policy tomorrow. It's
Oh.
first on our.
She's preparing.
No, we're not. But yeah, I think that's fantastic. And also, I think to your point about the work plan, and also your sort of gesture to Superintendent Gray to sort of be like, is this too much? I think actually at the end of the day, I think the evaluation of like, does the work plan serve that, is the determination of is the work plan right? So I think like based on the conversation, I think the work plan does serve that end from a variety of different angles. So I think, again, that would be the only thing I'd be wary of pulling anything out that we've talked about on the work plan. Sort of just check it against that first before we chuck it.
Okay.
You can call me Tom. I mean, it's up to you.
We don't have a policy on that yet.
I always tell people in our new board member orientation, we are only like quasi-formal. There will be no like, I agree with the former speaker. But we do raise our hands because, it is a school board after all. All right, so we have a motion and a second on the floor. Any other comments, questions? All those in favor? Great, thank you. All right, so new business, budget timeline. Pink paper in your packets. This should look pretty familiar at this point. I don't think we have changed anything on here other than we did add the date for the leadership meeting with the towns in December. December 3rd, we extended that invitation to the chairs of the select boards and the town councils and the administrators from each town. I don't know if they've RSVP'd yet, but it's always a great conversation. And that's probably the only change from the last time you saw this. Comments, questions? Steph?
What happens at that? What is that?
So that was born out of kind of some, to your point, confusion around like what's happening, what are we seeing for budgets, what are they seeing for budgets, other things that are happening across the communities that maybe we could collaborate on. We ended up with a position for a person who is a fields person for us in the summer and is a driver for plow trucks for the town of Freeport in the winter. So we don't both have to find somebody. We share that position. I'm just giving you some examples of things that have come out of those meetings in the past. We have done some shared purchasing for like paving, those sort of, oh, we're doing a big project. So are we, like, you get cheaper when you buy in bulk. And we just, kind of throw out things that are happening in the individual towns or in the district because, we have our own budget that we're responsible for, but it's not in a vacuum. Each town is doing something. Each, the town of Durham is moving to a July 1 fiscal year this year, right? So everyone in Durham just got an 18-month tax bill that blew everybody's mind, right? So, which is fine because it's 18 months. It's not, your taxes didn't go up 50% for anybody who's watching and hasn't figured that out yet. But just different things that are happening so that we can kind of plan, just having all of the information, I guess. So it was just a way of to share information and see if we could find efficiencies. Any other comments, questions? Yeah.
I think just a comment, and I don't think it's anything to add to or anything that would need to be reflected in the document, but just as I was thinking about last year's budget process, and where we might have been able to do better in terms of communication within the board, but also between the board and the superintendent, is sort of maybe a kind of identifying for ourselves sort of where in the process, if we are asking the superintendent to go back and adjust something, like when is that moment? Kind of when is that, again, because my sense is that's a little bit where things maybe got a little awry, is that that maybe didn't happen early enough, or did sort of or which I guess would mean too late. But I'm just sort of wondering whether that kind of March 11 date is sort of like something where we can kind of, again, not to have anything like set in stone, but just to say like, all right, coming into that meeting, can we as a board be thinking about, if we're thinking about adjustments, or if things are looking, if there's a sense that things are not, the board is not looking like it is going to support the proposed budget, to sort of just have a moment where we could all kind of say, let's look at that moment. Again, nothing set in stone, but that we all might kind of know that would be part of the conversation there. Like before we leave that night, it's sort of like, are we more or less going in the direction of supporting the budget, or are we really saying this is not what the board wishes to pursue?
If you're asking me, I think it's somewhere there in March.
Since we adopt it in March.
Yeah.
It's got to happen sometime that month.
It's not going to be later. I think probably that March 18th date is a sort of a good make or break date.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, my only hesitation, like I understand the concept and the idea around it, and I agree. In reality, how it plays out, I would say usually that March 11th date is that date that we're kind of like, hey, we'd love to see, if you were going to do this, like what might that look like? And they come back with some options for the next one. Because if you guys recall, generally how it works is that coming out of that 18th meeting, we have basically decided, because we try to know that number of what we're going to adopt the following week so that the papers are all ready for us to go. Now, we can we don't have to, and this year we didn't. We, we were spreadsheeting on the fly there up until the very last moment. But absent this year, I would say typically that March 11th date you've identified is usually where there would be some questions around, oh my gosh, this is too high. We need to see something, how might you address this and not have it this big? Or, oh, geez, this is way too low.
Well, and at that point, you'll have actually seen it 6 weeks before.
Right. We've seen all the presentations because really that's the key, right? Is the presentations is where we hear the why behind, because the first one is sort of the overview, and we'll get the bottom line number usually around, the budget increase. But, really the rubber meets the road, if you will, when we hear from each of the administrators and the directors around this is their recommendation and this is why. So, I think that March 11th date is a good one to be shooting for, and I think that's historically kind of that point in the process where we do that. Just didn't happen this year. Kelly.
Yeah, but that does bring up a good point that when we get those budget presentations from the various buildings and departments, that we should be maybe a little bit more proactive about raising those questions in those meetings.
While they're there.
While they're there, yeah. So that we can sort of get people thinking about our input a little bit earlier in the process, if possible.
Yeah, it's tough, right? Because part of it is I don't want to make a decision in a bubble, right? I want to look at the whole story, which is I want to hear from everybody, because I think one of the things our district does do well is the collaboration amongst the admin team. It's not like siloed budgets. It's like they have come together and said, for the good of the district, this is where we really need to prioritize this in this school, and I'm willing to sort of sit back on something maybe I'd love to have this year because we really want to do that for them. So it's hard to kind of pick individual ones but yeah, we can certainly be asking more questions in those.
Yeah, and I think the spirit of my comments are not to adjust the timeline, but also I think it's to just for us to be having this conversation honestly, just so we as a board are thinking about this ahead of time. And I guess it even maybe just the only thing I don't know, maybe it's not appropriate, but I was thinking of if we'll get the budget on the 28th, and then the week later is when we first start getting presentations. I wonder, if I'm remembering the process correctly, there's no moment basically until March 11 where we actually have a conversation about anything. So I wonder whether it might not be a bad idea to build into February 4th sort of initial
gut check.
Yeah, sort of what are people thinking about coming out of that? What are the things that have kind of risen to the surface? And maybe even have that before those presentations.
Oh, I think we'd have to, right? Because otherwise that wouldn't really be fair.
No, it would not. No, yeah. So, no, I was trying to set that up, that logic. But yeah, just to sort of to say all right, yeah. So again, we have a marker. We love it. Everything's great. Great job, Tom. You and your team, you nailed it. Or oh, wait, it's way too high. We have a little bit of a thing oh, okay. So that's kind of where we're going. And then the administrators and directors know what they're presenting to. And we also have a little bit of a sense of kind of what our compass is going forward. Again, nothing final on that, but again, just sort of.
I think it would be helpful if that gut check could be framed in terms of what you're curious about.
Yeah, right. And maybe it's actually on the 28th, because generally we get on the 28th and we ask no questions other than clarifying questions. And we don't really weigh in on, and I think that's intentional.
I agree with that.
Because I don't want to give a gut check before Julie gets up and she's like, oh Jesus, that's not what I would have said if I'd known this was what they were thinking 5 minutes before.
Right.
So my only hesitation is it's hard. I don't know. I think we are open-minded enough as a board to not drop the hammer on the 28th before having all the information in front of us, right, without hearing all the presentations. But I do think it's fair to maybe just give a sort of a superficial perspective on what we've heard around sort of the full proposed budget, because maybe that will then help the presentations target what some of our questions are earlier.
Right, I agree with that, as long as, like you said, they're really more like the questions, really not like, oh, we don't like this because it's not below 8%. That's too high, but.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
right.
just kind of
Yeah,
thinking
like-
about it with very broad brush strokes coming in, not having heard any of the information from the presentations yet. I would be very cautious about drawing conclusions,
Right.
the gut check conclusions.
Right, because we could, I'm trying to think back of what we would have seen on that meeting in January last year, where we could have said, like, okay, I want to know how they're going to meet these needs based on eliminating this teacher, right? Like, I'd love to hear more about that when they're presenting to us, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that would be really helpful, because I feel like I remember leaving that meeting with where it was presented and then kind of no context beyond just that, and wishing that we had had more.
Yeah.
Or had been able to have some sort of discussion.
Yeah, I think it was specifically designed that way to just, okay, here's the top, and then we're going to give you all of the information you need, as opposed to like just starting with a specific school or a specific line item, or, it's sort of like, as a district, this is what we're tackling, and this is how we're kind of tackling it as a group, and then we'll hear all the details over the upcoming 6 weeks. So I can see the benefits of both approaches, but obviously last year's, how it rolled out, showed up on the con side of that, is that we ended up very much at the end with a lot of moving parts. So I'm not sure how it would have been different had we done it this way, but maybe it would have. So we're happy to try it.
I think it absolutely would have been different, because I think we would have said in that meeting, why are we aiming for this percentage? Nobody asked for this percentage. And so why are you making these cuts? And then the presentation could have been made, because it will improve these learning outcomes. And then we would have proceeded from there.
Yeah.
So I guess that's where I would only disagree a little bit, Kelly. I think that is the moment where we say, like, ooh, that's like, again, not to say like go back and change the number, but just to say, like, this doesn't, like, this feels low, or this feels just, again, or I'm trying to figure out how to, I'm curious about this number. I'm curious about where this number came from.
This.
Right.
Yeah.
And not to say sort of directed, but to say, before we start hearing any of the building administrator presentations on really where this is coming from, what's the board thinking about? I don't know. I think that's I don't think we need to get into the minutia, but I think like a little bit at that level, because honestly, I think that would have saved us a lot of headache.
I think it would also be fair in the interim for you to sit with it and then email questions in writing that you hope may come up and be answered in the presentations. Speaking as an administrator who has been through that.
Ringer, as they call it.
Well, one of the reasons I feel really good working, I know you will be fair and kind, and it's not easy to, be in the spotlight that way, and especially if there are controversial things to be discussed or proposed, and, our administrators are human beings, and any kind of lead time that we or they can get to be able to anticipate and give good answers will be helpful.
Okay. So that was a FYI in your folders. Sorry, yeah.
If this is a public-facing document, correct? Like this
is on our website, yep.
Educational for the public. I wonder if, I'm not sure what the 2 lines are on this document, but I'm wondering.
Yeah, I don't either.
If that second line would be a good place to say when the budget brochures go out, if we added something saying that at this point you would expect to receive.
Yeah, it definitely happens at that line because they have it before the Q&As.
We might not know the exact date,
Right.
but if we,
Right.
we might want to add something there.
What was that?
The budget brochure.
To add on to that point too, I'm airing my ignorance of town meetings and voting in town meeting forum. To me, the annual budget meeting does not tell me that I, as a member of the public, would vote at that meeting. And also the validation referendum. Like, I think these are votes where the public engagement really matters. It's important to explicitly state, if possible.
Yeah, I mean, it could even be, I mean, because the Q&As are too, right? So, maybe it's, we have public input. So we could put, an asterisk, and then, asterisk is where, this is your part to play.
Michelle? I mean, just on that, again, going to the kind of strategic communications piece of saying, like, is there a moment where somebody, whether it's Tom's office or us, sends out a narrative version of this as an email to the whole community and says,
the timeline?
Of the timeline, and says, like, we're starting this process. Here's what these things mean. Like this, like during this chunk of time, we're presented, the board deliberates, and here's things. Then these are your opportunities to come. There's a half hour, like just narrating it, because I think to Stephanie's point, that's not necessarily obvious, and I think it's probably only if you go looking for it.
I'll check with Ginny about that. Now, one of the things she was just telling me this morning is that she was, explaining all of the different ways that we do communicate about this. And I know one of them was a brochure that goes out to people's mailboxes, like a snail mail brochure.
That's the budget brochure. That's
this. Okay.
Yep.
So.
And that's another place where I think explicit statements that you can vote as
This
a
is
town.
where you come.
Yeah, exactly. This is where you come. This is where you can vote, and etc.
But also, like last year's budget, we didn't send it out in the mail because it was
Too late.
protracted.
Yeah, we posted it. We had it at every town. We had printed copies at every town office. We just let people know where they could find it because we couldn't get it to print because we didn't have the date here and we changed it here. We weren't able to print it because it's a pretty tight timeline. Yeah, and we had to find a new printer.
It seems to me like last year or maybe the year before, maybe she does it every year, but Jean did such a thing like a narrative in the forecaster and maybe somewhere else too. But just,
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure that did happen on some platform.
and I also call everybody's house and tell them to vote. I do that. I ruin everyone's dinner. Yeah, one bag.
I will say that I'm not sure that's going to be as effective this year. I don't know if anybody else is getting robocalls from the IRS, but I am.
Like, call them back.
Multiple a day. They leave a 30-second voicemail. It is like I don't answer my phone anymore. Like regardless of who's calling.
The good news is it does say RSU 5 when I call, so generally people will pick it up.
It does say RSU 5 IRS.
All right. Are we good with that one? Okay, so the next item we have, and had I thought this through, we probably would have done this on a day where Maura is here and not here. So I don't know if we want to.
I went to the meeting on Monday, so I have a little bit of info.
Okay,
on this.
great.
Yeah.
So this is a bigger packet than we usually get of information. But this is the MSBA delegate assembly. We talked a little bit about this at the retreat. This is the body that basically develops the work plan, if you will, for the MSBA lobbying arm, and up in Augusta. And so each year they undertake a slate of resolutions. Sometimes they adjust others, previous ones. Sometimes they have fully new ones. This one, it looks like they've done a fair amount of rewrites for previous ones, and some new ones, and some for deletion. So that's interesting. So what we have done historically is kind of talk through the resolutions as a board and given some instruction indication to the delegate, which is Steph this year, and Maura is the backup because she'll be there anyway because she's on the MSBA board, around how we would like folks to vote on these. So that's kind of the overview of what we're looking at, and then I'll ask Steph what she learned.
There's also, we can suggest modifications
make an
until
amendment,
like
yeah.
the start of October if there's something that we didn't like or we want a different language on. That's also something that some other districts did at the meeting that I was at, and we can still do via email. I think it's until like October 8th or something. October 10th, maybe. Yeah. Something like that. Anyway.
Early October. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
And then I can, there's like the new ones, the deletions, they gave me a little bit more information about what the deletions were around and why they were deleted.
Okay.
And then some folks asked questions. We didn't get into all the, edits are like not substantially changing the meaning of something. It's just more like language or grammar or
Yeah.
consistency. And then rewrites, there is more substantial, reasoning and it's changing more substantively, what the resolution is. And so there's a lot more of those, but those were gone over more high level. So if anyone had any specific questions, I could maybe answer some of them, or, yeah, I'll pause there.
okay. Is this the most up to date?
There's one other version that had one small edit,
Okay.
but this is otherwise the most up to date. The edit is on the first page, in the bottom rationale section, second line, regardless of immigration status instead of regardless of education status. That's the only edit that I was made aware of.
Okay.
Just, if we really just wanted to be pedantic, we also could suggest that at the top of the title spells proposed correctly.
Proposed is fine.
That may have been updated too, but I didn't catch it either.
That's not even close to spelled right. That's not even a word, is it? That's what happens when you use all caps. It doesn't pick it up as a misspelled word. Okay, so proposed resolutions. The first is the role of the U.S. Department of Education. So the MSBA fundamentally supports the original mission of the U.S. Department of Education to promote student achievement and preparation for global competitiveness by fostering educational excellence and ensuring equal access. MSBA opposes any effort that reduces federal funding to Maine schools. Any such change would disproportionately harm rural students, those with disabilities, and children from economically disadvantaged communities. And then they provide the rationale, talking about certain federal funds have already been withheld, creating budget challenges in many districts. Other proposals from the federal government would effectively restructure many federal funding streams and reduce funding from current levels. These grants serve a valuable purpose, helping to fund positions such as math and reading coaches, interventionists, guidance counselors, and before and after school activities. Any cuts would result in the loss of programming and or increases in the local school budgets. So sometimes their proposed resolutions are kind of philosophical, which is the category I kind of put this one. Like they're just like, what do we stand for? Kind of statements. Do we have any concern with a yes vote on this proposal, or do we have any recommendations to make it even more strong?
One recommendation that another board suggested is the last sentence of the resolution is any such change would harm all students, disproportionately rural, those with disabilities, and children from economically disadvantaged communities. So they thought it was important to say that it would negatively impact all students as well, not just the ones specifically named. So
I could be on board with either of those. So, yes on one?
I would just say yes on one, and for Steph, no on anything watering it down.
Yeah.
So this level, or I guess up.
Stronger. Yeah.
Um,
Yep. Okay. 2 is a tax policy. The Maine School Boards Association believes revenue sources to fund public schools should be raised in a fair and equitable manner based on a taxpayer's ability to pay. So that's the resolution. The rationale is the Maine legislature is considering several proposals that would impact the EPS funding formula. So for our new board members, the EPS funding formula is the essential programs and services. That is what the DOE uses to determine how much they would say it costs to educate a student. And that is what is used to determine subsidy. So that formula is currently under review. So multiple bills call for the creation of a new state funding streams to fund K-12 public education. More state funding for schools is badly needed. Local property taxpayers already face substantial burdens, yet school districts face growing expenses such as rising special education costs and the maintenance and upkeep of aging school infrastructures. This resolution would provide more guidance to the MSBA's Legislative Committee as it evaluates legislative proposals affecting Maine school funding. I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm not a no vote on this. I don't think it says anything particularly interesting. I mean, fair and equitable manner based on a taxpayer's ability to pay. I mean, that's always the question is what is a taxpayer's ability to pay based off of? So, I mean, this is obviously a deeply complex issue around the EPS formula and how funding for education is determined. I'm not sure how this resolution helps guide anyone's decision making.
I think it was meant to be more for the legislative process that's currently underway, or those who are advocating for different legislation.
Right. So maybe some of the bills out there are completely unfair and unequitable. And so this, I guess, comes down on the side of we think it should be at least fair and equitable. I mean, I'm not a no on this. I'm just not sure how helpful it is. But other thoughts on this one?
I guess I just have I have a question that maybe, I don't know, Steph, if they went over this, but maybe Mara, if you're watching this video, get back to us next meeting, of just whether the MSBA has issued any further, has made any further statements about these new potential revenue sources or proposals, right? Because if this is the only one, I find that a little curious. If sort of the only thing that the MSBA is saying is like, make sure that taxes are fair and equitable, and not saying anything further about effectively what's in the rationale, right? Like what's in the rationale is much more substantive in terms of, it seems like what a body could be saying, right? Is that like, this is needed, and it needs to be shifted, or not, additional support needs to be given beyond what the state is currently providing.
Okay.
I don't have any other information to add.
On that one?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, number 3 for newly proposed resolutions, immigrants.
Sorry, do I have a proposed vote on that, or we're waiting for Mara on that?
I mean, I don't
There's
see us
still
voting
time,
no
yeah.
on that. I mean, I'm not sure what the recommendation could change to that would switch your vote from a yes to a no. I mean, if somebody made the motion that, RSU 5 should pick up the bill for all the surrounding towns, that's a definite no vote from you. But, yeah.
Yeah, I guess one question I have about how it's worded that might better capture the rationale is, it says more state funding for schools is badly needed, but the actual resolution doesn't address if we're asking for more than we are already asking for, or if we're just going to change formulas somehow so that, you know what I'm saying? Are we saying that we're trying to support bills that will increase state taxes in a way that they, I guess I'm just wondering, how does the more get addressed?
Yeah. Well, I think the implication is that more from the state is fair based on taxpayers' ability to pay, right? So there are districts where the local taxpayer ability to pay is very different than other parts of the state. So if it's too reliant on local taxes, those students are at a disadvantage. So revenue sources to fund it should be raised in a fair and equitable manner. I don't think it's saying that more money needs to be raised. It's just how, like, where it's coming from.
But that's what the rationale says.
Right. Well, more state, right. So there, I think the implication when I read that is that it should be less local taxpayer funded, more state funded. And how do you capture that? I mean, part of what the EPS formula does is it says, like, you know, this is how much it should cost to educate a student, and some of those numbers are significantly lower than it actually costs to educate a student. So if those numbers or those formulas were more inclusive, it would flow through that you would get more subsidy, right? Because they would say it costs more to educate these students. This is the total bucket we think it costs to educate them. How much you're required to pay through the local requirement would not necessarily change. So the difference is your subsidy. So that would leave less to be paid through additional local monies. If that makes sense. I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I
It's
guess
just
it just
vague.
goes back to the vagary that you
Yeah.
mentioned in the beginning. I guess it doesn't really say a lot
Yeah.
about what this means.
I wonder if they should consider adding the third sentence in the rationale to the actual resolution,
More state funding
Yeah.
for schools is badly needed.
or some version of that.
They do seem to be, I mean, I think the title, right, tax policy, I think is kind of,
Big.
is both vague, but also I think they're actually trying to be specific. They're sort of like, this is the only thing we're commenting on. We're only commenting on, like, whatever tax policy gets created. It's not, like, the title of it is not need for new revenue sources. Right, it's sort of just saying, like, whatever tax policy the state has regarding education, this should be true. I agree
fair
with
and
you.
equitable.
It doesn't mean nothing, but, like, it doesn't really mean anything. It's like, yes, because if you take the opposite of it, it's a ridiculous statement.
Right. I think it should be unfair and inequitable.
Right.
Right.
There's another edit later about school construction where it's like the last one in this packet, where it's like very clearly they're taking a position that the funding should come from other sources besides property tax, and particularly for school construction. And so there's sort of like some language there as well. So there's other places where I guess their rationale is reinforced.
A little more specifically.
In specific ways. Yeah. For what that's worth.
All right. Are we good with a yes on 2 then?
I'm just wondering if it makes sense to actually insert that more or suggest that as an edit between believes and revenue, just to put believes more revenue sources to fund should be raised in a fair and equitable manner, since that's in their rationale.
I'm not sure. I mean, because they're not saying believes revenue sources to fund public schools. So that's all revenue sources. That's the state, that's local, that's all the things. I'm not sure what they're saying is that more revenue needs to be generated. I think they're saying how it's like where those different buckets comes from needs to be fair and equitable. But maybe I'm misreading it. Yeah.
To me, it sounds like they're trying to say we should be less reliant on local taxes if it's less equitable to do that. Meaning if the local, I don't know, community can't support the basics of education, where else are we going to get that money? Because we still need to support that education.
Right, so
That's what the crux of it seems to be.
I think so. I think that's exactly, yeah. Yeah, I don't think they're taking a stand on like how much is spent on education. I think they're taking a stand on how the revenue is raised.
But it's talking about revenue sources. We're talking about more revenue sources, not necessarily the total pot. So
Right, exactly, yeah. I agree with that.
that would be the wording change.
Say it again?
More revenue sources, not necessarily more revenue.
Oh, I see, yep. Believes more revenue sources to fund should be. I think that changes the rest of the sentence.
Yeah, I think the raised makes it weird.
Yeah.
I could ask for clarity.
Yeah, and maybe that's the question is
Yeah.
is like, you know, what are we trying to get at here? Is there a way to be more clear in what we're trying to accomplish? You know, maybe that third sentence belongs in some form or fashion moved up to be more clear. Okay. Immigrant students. The Maine School Board Association is committed to maintaining a safe and secure learning environment for all students, staff, and visitors, and believes that regardless of their immigration status, no student should be denied a free public education. Rationale, the 1982 Supreme Court case Plyer v. Doe declared that all U.S. children have a constitutional right to a public education regardless of immigration status. In Maine, schools have seen a growing number of immigrant students in recent years in the midst of changing policies at the local, state, and national levels. This resolution affirms a commitment to providing an education to all students in Maine and aligns with the MSBA's core mission of enhancing the education of all students in Maine's public schools. Yeah, Chris?
My only thought on that would be, it's a negative statement at the end. Instead of it being a negative, have it be a positive. As in, instead of saying no student should be denied a free public education, say something to the effect of,
Every student should have access to a free public
yeah,
education.
something like that.
Any other thoughts on that one? I think we are firmly a yes on this, yes?
It feels like a yes or plus, right?
Yeah,
So
I was
if
going to
it's
say,
like
yeah.
shifts,
Definitely
yeah.
nothing watering
Yeah.
that one down.
Yeah. Great.
Okay. I don't think I'm going to read through all the deletions. Yeah.
I do have a question about the rationale for 2A1A. Did they talk about that one at all? It's the first one on the.
281A.
Yes, so it's now required by statute, so they no longer need to have a policy on it, a resolution on it. And then the others essentially is the same. It's either like there was a statute or it happened at the federal level or there's another policy that's replacing it or adding more emphasis to it in another modification later in the document. Or in the second one, parenting education, you can see it's last amended in 99. The shift has been to parental involvement. So there's like rationale for all, or it's being addressed in another way for all the removals.
It does make you wonder why nobody's thought to get rid of this in the last 26 years, but. I guess it's only fair. We probably have a fair number of policies too that we're we're working our way through. So, okay. So we then have edits, which don't substantially change the intent or meaning. Any concerns on any of those?
So I had a
Yeah.
question.
Yep.
So the one, it's 2A, 3F on the business employment of students.
Yep.
Who's regulating that? Like are we keeping a list of who's working? And if or not, they actually are working too many hours, and if they have bad grades and can't be working those hours, like how is that?
Well, this
Guess
one
I-
is not a law. This is just their resolution, right?
Yeah, but so what does that mean though? Like,
So the Maine School Board Association
Suggest
reminds, don't forget, local school boards of the statute. So there is a statute regarding employment of students during the school year, as well as limits to work permits for students with inappropriate attendance or grades.
We would, I haven't dug into this yet, but if we're like any other district, we do keep a record of when we issue a work permit.
Yeah, and that, I mean, you would only have a work permit if they're under 16, right? So
Right.
there's no, how would you govern a 16-year-old who doesn't come to you for a work permit? You would have no idea if they had a job or not.
Yeah.
right, and you could go to the town technically for a work permit, because my daughter did that, because school was out, so.
Interesting. Yeah.
I do think there is a law, though, that you can only work up to, I want to say it's like 30 hours if you're is it 20?
Yeah, it depends on how
Yeah.
old you are. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
this is more for if the student works for the
Well, that's what I
school?
was wondering, because, I mean, we do have some students that, like, work in Laugh and Learn and.
Run the
Mhm.
FPAC.
Or in the FPAC, right? So it's an interesting question. Particularly if we are their employer, is there any tracking of their grades or attendance to ensure that they are compliant?
Right, maybe we could get clarity on what this is trying to, what type of employment this is trying to get at. Is it by the district?
Yeah, I'll just note too that this is an edit,
Yeah.
which means that this is already in place.
Right.
And so the modifications the only thing that they're asking us to approve is the modifications,
changes.
is the red language.
Yeah,
Or
so
the
I think
red-
it's more of a
the red
question of
text.
like, I wonder if we're doing this.
Yeah, totally.
Didn't even know this
That's
was a
my
rule.
question.
Yeah.
Are we doing this, and who's doing this?
Yeah.
Sorry,
So maybe that's a
Tom.
question for Kelly and the folks in HR
Yeah.
around employee. I mean, I'm not sure there is any possible way, if they don't work for us, that we could ever track it or should be expected to track it. But, I mean, I wonder what the statute they're referring to says. Because it doesn't reference the statute.
I suppose that could be one recommendation, is that they include what statute.
Yeah, so we know to look it up and see if we're good.
The boards, school boards of statute blank.
Can
That
certainly find out the statute
Yeah.
for everyone.
I also just want to give you something to do, because it's fun to kind of raise your hand and be like, "I got
I
a
do need
thing."
more to do, so thank you.
In the meeting, he means.
Yeah, no, in the meeting.
Not just in general in your life.
I mean, it does say businesses and potential employers, so I think maybe it is the entire community.
Well, I mean, we can certainly control it when they come to us for a permit to say, no, you don't come to school. We're not going to issue you a permit. We don't think you should have a job. Your job is to come to school. But like once it's issued, I don't know how we would ever track it. You can't revoke it, I don't believe. Oh, can you?
I don't know.
How about as a business owner, I'm pretty sure no one's ever asked us about kids' grades or how much they're working.
Right. Yeah.
Or that family loophole when you work for your family.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the rules don't apply. They can work you as much as they want. You should see how much Danielle works her kids. I see Rich more than I see the kids. All right, so AI, the next one, I looked at that one just because, we were talking about AI. And this one was new. This was a new one last year that got put in place. And it looks like the only change is, adding awareness of potential dangers. So, okay.
There was talk about this one too. Another district suggested that at the end, it end with AI is not a substitute for schoolwork, period, and that they remove that requires original thought from it. Yeah. And then they also said that they'll likely be revisiting this policy quite frequently for a while. So
Yeah, right.
it will keep.
This one
keep
will
modifying.
morph through the years, yeah.
Could we propose AI is not a substitute for schoolwork, semicolon, schoolwork requires original thought?
I'm happy to send that email.
And adding schoolwork again. Okay. So then we have a few more adjustments. Yeah. Air tapes.
On
Copyright.
the, what is it, 2A2E advertising in the schools, did they give you any justification on that edit? Because for me, it substantially changes the meaning of that. I mean, before they said that they're encouraging us to prohibit advertisements, and now they're saying you should adopt a policy, which is a very different meaning in my mind. And a meeting that I don't think I would approve of. Like, I liked the prohibition. So I would vote no on that edit.
Yeah, I didn't get any additional info on that one. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, I wonder.
What's the underline of the one they then crossed out? I'm
It
confused.
looks like that the prohibition was on certain products, not it wasn't a universal prohibition. So instead, I think it sounds like they want people to be more thoughtful and have more local control over that, and instead of just a broad prohibition on these certain minimum nutritional products.
Right,
Like-
right. Yeah, because that's what it said before, right? Adopt policies on advertising in schools, including a prohibition on advertisements for products that do not meet the minimum nutrition standards or which are otherwise incompatible with educational mission of schools. So no smoking, no booze,
My
no Coke.
curiosity around that one is whether I wasn't there, but this is just what comes to me. Did that discussion intersect with anything going on with the Department of Health and Human Services federally right now?
I can understand that justification. For me, though, I see it, and I liked it before the edit better. So.
So now it would say adopt policies on advertising, especially for products that do not meet the nutritional standards. Incompatible. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure their sample policy that we, I think, reviewed a year or two ago speaks about prohibiting advertising.
Yeah,
It's a
so
little
it
more
is.
specific to their
You are right. It is a little weird because it is pulling back because it was like, so for example, if that had been the language before we adopted our policy, we might. You see what I mean? Like, we might have been like, oh, okay, like, we're just going to make sure, like, we're going to allow some advertise, or whatever it is, but.
Which we do.
Which we do, but the prohibition, yeah, I don't know. I agree. I think it's an odd pullback.
Yeah,
It does
because I
kinda
mean,
make you wonder about the rationale. Like, is there a situation where you would allow
Right.
this kind of advertising in our schools?
Well,
I
how
mean,
much
I
money
guess
will
I
they
can give
give
you
you?
an example that I'm pretty sure is out on our track right now. Is like when we have our sports teams that have like a sponsor banner, and Maine Beer Company likes to donate to things in the community. I mean, that should be prohibited, or?
I think Mean Beer Company has a self-prohibition on that.
I actually think they do too, but that's an example of, like a community member,
Or Pepsi or Coca-Cola with your sports signs,
right. So that one actually was an actual event here when we need to replace in the gym. We replace the scoreboard, and those companies will donate the scoreboard if you have like a name on it. So I think ours says Powerade instead of Coke because we have a policy.
I wonder if you mentioned local control, and I wonder if
Because they added that too.
if this revision was keeping in mind what local communities might be inclined to do if minimum nutrition standards nationally, if the definition of that changes in a dramatic way.
But I mean, the also thing to remember is these are just the resolutions, right? I mean, these are not rules. These are not things we live by or we're required to or policies we have to adopt. I mean, this is just kind of what the MSBA uses as their guidelines.
Yeah, I might make a rare suggestion that we
Rare
not
suggestion?
that we well, no, that I think we're talking about this a little long.
Yeah.
And again, just so that's on the record, I have said that
Once in his life.
Again, I think it is important, but I think the issues we're getting into here are like, I think we're really talking about like how do we feel about it in terms of how it impacts our district, and that's not really what this is
The
about.
MSBA, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, I don't think.
I can still ask, right? Like
Yeah.
the rationale.
Yep.
It would be useful for us. Yeah. Yeah.
Any other comments on the edits? Okay. The reads rights are more substantial. Did they have any kind of highlights on that section?
So there was one discussion that happened on these, maybe more. So the one that there was something else added. Folks asked questions about 2B1I on the bottom of page 5. I'll just give you a minute to read it.
It is, actually.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that for like an hour. That's my new proposal. Yeah, that one's super interesting. That's a really.
Yeah, they provided just additional information that, so the question was like, why did you delete the last sentence? And they thought there was ambiguity around which documents and who are they to say like which values, which documents. So it was meant to give some suggestions, but also allow suggest freedom of choice for what those identifying your own values.
Yeah, U.S. Foundation documents. I'm
Right.
not sure what that means. Is that like
Right.
the Declaration of Independence, or
That's
is it like?
essentially why it was deleted.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because my first thought was like foundations that do work around this. Like, do they have documents? But
Yeah.
so like our foundational documents as a country. I see.
Yeah, because like, is the Bill of Rights, is that values? Like, those are rights, not
But they come from what we feel is
valuable. Yeah. I don't know. I like it. I think it's cool. Let's keep it in there.
Yeah, so pulled out that and added some more specific ones like respect, compassion. So not necessarily. Okay.
Yeah, essentially like U.S. Foundation documents could be interpreted a lot of ways to a lot of people. And so it's clear which values they're suggesting.
Well, I have a quick question.
Yep.
Sorry, Colin.
No.
I just some clarification, because I think you can read into it a couple different ways. But 2A4, is that an O? I guess 4O. The
Email
email
addresses.
stuff. I mean, it says school board business may not be conducted via email. So
So
how specific is that, right? So I can't say, thanks, Tom, for the update. I have an additional question I want you to look into.
you can do that, but what you can't, there is kind of a concrete limit. If you get enough board members chiming in on a conversation that you reach a quorum, then you've had a meeting outside the meeting. So you just have to be mindful of that.
It's just a weird sentence, in
Yeah.
my opinion, because it's so vague.
I mean, it is vague, but I think it's specifically, I think once you're having conversation, like back and forth conversation with multiple people weighing in on opinions about things that probably should be done in public, it's one thing to say like, hey, found this interesting article, thought the board might appreciate it. That's not a conversation. That's just providing some information. But if you're like, yeah, you know what I thought was really interesting was the fourth paragraph. And you're like, no, that's when you start getting into a conversation, and that's conducting business outside of a meeting. And I try to make sure that we don't do that.
You're very good at doing that, Michelle.
Very mean, I know.
That's not what I said. I have a question about the first one. It's actually, my previous comment still stands. I don't want to talk about this forever, but I just don't understand that one. I mean, I understand what the words say, but
The board teacher relations one?
yeah, like fully supports statutory meet and consult requirements contained within teacher contracts regarding proposed education policy changes, while maintaining board authority to make changes to education policy. I don't know. I guess I understand it. I don't understand why that's a issue, or like why is it?
I think it's probably, it's a good question. My guess is they were consolidating two specific resolutions into one. Because it's completely eliminating, because that first one exists, right? And they're just adding to it, but eliminating the next one. One of the things that we're always trying to be cognizant of when we're reviewing and negotiating new contract is to make sure we're not adding educational policy to contracts, because it doesn't belong there. Educational policy is the purview of the board and the administration, not the union. But certain things dictate us to have this meet and consult, right? That is you'll find that in our contract several places. Like, we're happy to have a conversation with the union and explain why we're doing what we're doing. But if it is educational policy, it is not grievable. It is not something that can be, brought to the board to say, like, we disagree with this. That is the board's right. So I think this is just sort of confirming, like, yes, we are fully supportive of the meet and consult requirements, while still understanding that we maintain. Yeah. Let's see. So we talked about emails, facilities. So this is another one that looks like it's not, well, is it really replacing that? I don't even know. I'm confused when it says it's replacing one with the same numbers as what it says, but it's not all new. Do you know how that works?
Yeah, so they're striking the old one.
Yeah.
And then the new one, if it's not in red text, it was a part of the previous one.
Okay. So instead of like underlining, capitalize, yeah, they're just restating it, but highlighting the changes? Okay. Okay, administrating, okay. Yeah.
On 2B, 5B, learning support, the last sentence is funding should be provided to support implementation. And I'm wondering where that funding is coming from, or what they're recommending, if the DOE is to provide that funding, or if the district should be providing that funding.
Usually the recommendation is not the district.
Yeah. So yeah, the previous sentence is the DOE needs to identify existing resources, appropriate measurement tools, and share effective interventions. Funding should be provided to support implementation. So my assumption is that
Yeah.
DOE provides the funding.
Yeah, so there's a common thread through a lot of their resolutions of avoiding unfunded mandates, right? So the state will say, you have to do this. And you're like, well, you're going to help us pay for that? No, we're not. So like trying to avoid those things.
Yeah, so the previous policy, the last sentence was consideration of appropriate funding provided by the Maine Department of Education is also recommended. So it's a change to funding should be provided to support implementation from that. Not sure what that means.
Which is funny because
but
it's
yeah.
actually even more vague. Like
Yeah,
before, at
right,
least it said it was coming
exactly.
from the DOE, or like they would consider it. I guess that it's part of it is vague, right? Like, so appropriate consideration of appropriate is recommended. Like they should at least think about giving us the money. Now they're saying they should give us the money, but not telling us who they is. So maybe that's a recommended change, like the Department of It should be providing funds to support implementation. It's fun to try and read what this was before. So MSBA continues to oppose mandatory merging of school administrative units. Did that mean it previously said MSBA mandatory merging? Like, I don't understand. Maybe just the continues. Technology. Yep.
3B2C, talking about on page 8, maximizing federal and state assistance through economically disadvantaged rates. They talk about continuing to use best available poverty data, and accurate identification through available and acceptable methods is essential. I'm just wondering if this is about relying on other data than the free and reduced lunch forms that parents no longer have to fill out.
Yeah, I
right?
think that's why this is being considered.
Okay. And I guess I'm just curious what the other data.
I'm not sure they know yet.
methods they're talking about. Okay. They just don't refer to those forms at all, or do they? But I'm not understanding. Okay. Just want to make sure I was understanding that. But if you have more
Yeah,
info.
yeah. My guess is that's why they're trying to capture that, because they
Yeah.
don't have to fill out those forms anymore.
I'm itching back there because they don't fund MTSS to begin with. That was a couple items back, so that was I was like, so the SES forms have now it's gone to an identification of household income as opposed to the former system of having like requesting that access to free and or reduced lunch depending on the number of children in the household and the economics of the household. So we've had to do that. We defer to the SES, like that baseline indicator, but the state has been exploring other ways to capture that information without any of the ask. And it's a very tricky path for them to try to navigate an alternative because the information is not readily available. So my understanding is they haven't made any progress. That's what I know about that.
I logged in today to Power School just, for fun. And because I like to torture my son. But anyways, it did ask, it popped up right away, and it asked if we met, it outlined incomes above and asked if my son met any of those. And it was a simple yes or no. I mean, obviously I hit no, but so I guess that's another way to track some of that data, right? If people
That
are
is how
actually
we
filling
track
that out, yeah.
Yeah, that's how we track it right now. We happen to believe we're not properly capturing the need.
Yeah, I think that, I imagine that is, well, I don't imagine, I know, that even with the forms,
Mm-hmm.
I think most districts under count
Mm-hmm.
because people don't fill it out.
Yeah.
So, while free food in schools, I think is absolutely fantastic. That is sort of one of those unintended consequences that I'm not sure people thought about ahead of time as to what it might mean without having to capture that data anymore. So,
So are we okay on, no questions on that one then from the board? Kara?
yeah, I think so.
okay.
I appreciate the change in that next one around vouchers and, diluting the power of public education in the 3B, 3G. So the probationary period one, did they talk about that?
Yeah, they know that the current statute says 2, but they're suggesting that their opinion is that it should go back to 3. They didn't give any additional information other
No.
than that. Yeah. And
I would say that's a good move.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Professional development to support student achievements. Move to section 4. Are there different sections of the resolution? Is that, I'm just trying to figure out why that one's in blue. Around the charter school one?
it's just like their little directory of like
Oh, okay.
moving to different categories.
Okay. Did they talk about the charter school one at all? Around what drove that?
No.
I mean, it seems like the last time it was touched was before the charter schools were in place, so it would make sense that they would have some updates, but it's interesting. Unfunded retirement costs, not a surprise. The superintendent agreement one?
Yeah, the intention there they shared was that they support and suggest superintendents decide on it annually, so that it's not just a one and done decision, that they're revisiting it every year.
Well, it already has to be done every year. I wonder if, I wonder if the intention of this is to remove the state's role in the appeal process even more.
Yeah.
Is this 4.8?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry,
I
page
know-
11.
I was wondering if there was ever a legislative review or commission to create the criteria. That's what they're. I
Oh,
think there
gosh,
should
I'm not
be.
sure. I mean, really, the criteria that's in statute, to the best of my memory, is that it's just supposed to be what is demonstrated to be in the child's best interest. With that said, either superintendent can put the kibosh on it.
But then they bring it to the department, the main DOE, and they can override,
Right.
which they often do.
Yes.
So basically, they're just saying it should rest with the two superintendents making the
That's
decision.
the way I'm reading it.
Yeah. Okay. And then
Yeah,
you
I
said
just
there was some stuff around the construction one.
yeah. Well, I just reread, quote unquote, we support superintendents deciding on this.
Mhm.
So yes, Tom,
Yeah.
to your point. Yeah, so this one I just it to me it puts the proposed regulation about taxes. I think that it gives you a little bit more transparency into their thought process around school funding.
Yeah, I mean, the current, what's it called? The thing where you send them pictures of how bad your school is and you get in the lottery.
Oh, yeah, it's the lottery.
It's basically what it is, right?
It literally, that is what it is, yeah.
I mean, I think, yeah, this seems different though, right? Like what they're replacing seems like a different thing than they're talking about in the new one.
Yeah, it's different, but I to me it my point of connecting it is that it gives you language around where funding for some of these projects should come from.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah,
Well,
where they think the source of funding needs to be coming from.
What I find interesting is the second bullet. Alter the project approval process so that smaller projects can move forward as well as massive building replacements. the trap that districts can fall into is that let's say you have this, ailing building and you're far down the list. So that leaves you with this impossible choice of, well, if we put money into this building to repair something or upgrade it in some way that we really need, we're then shooting ourselves in the foot
For all the
because
rest
we're
of
going
the
to go down
buildings.
the list. So that seems to be a remedy for that.
Except then the last bullet is to incentivize districts to put money into the building so that you don't have to get replaced.
Yeah.
It's just kind of, what are you going to give? Can we get some money for that?
Right.
I mean, what's interesting to me is like, this is about the major capital school construction program, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I understand the dilemma of, do we just chip away at this in big chunks and replace the whole big schools that need it? Or, what we replaced was basically a fund, the recommendation for a fund to fund small projects across the state. I don't know. Clearly that one didn't work, so we're going to move on to this one, but improve transparency and predictability in the funding process by extricating construction funding from the EPS formula. Yeah, because it is in there now, right? So the state-funded school in Durham, that's a whole separate item in our EPS, ED 279.
I mean, just on that one, I wonder whether there is matching legislation to this one because it's so specific.
Yeah, maybe.
It seems pretty granular, to be like
Yes.
these very particular things, which maybe you might want to have in the bill. Like it seems like I don't know.
Right.
Seems like somebody's got a plan.
Yeah, to Steph's point, that first one was like, we want fair tax policy. And what do we mean by that? We mean this one.
Exactly. There's two bills that they're expecting will have more resolution. I guess I'm bad with terms about the EPS formula and then also the school construction. So they're considering bills in the legislature now about those two things. So I think that's where this one's
Came
coming from.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm hearing that we didn't have any we were a hard no to. We had a couple of maybe clarification or recommendations or maybe even strengthening a few, but none that we've felt strongly you should oppose. Is that a fair assessment of our conversation? That, according to Colin, went way too long. Okay. Do you have what you need, Steph?
Yes, and I'll try to get answers for some of the other ones for our own continued conversation.
Anything about the change in the bylaws we should think about? 'Cause I saw that was in here too.
Those are mostly like consistency,
Okay.
or clarification, and then there was a few on like what they can do in an emergency situation with replacing members or with needing an emergency vote on a policy.
It allows, like, emails, I see that, yeah.
Yeah. So that was it. It was all mostly like consistency.
Okay. And then this is just the minutes of last year's meetings. Okay.
That's the current copy of the resolutions as they stand.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Any other comments around the MSBA delegate assembly, other than big thanks to Steph for doing it? All right.
Colin, it was very interesting. So your suggestion was correct.
All right. So we don't have any personnel items. Oh, look, we're back to public comment. Anyone arrive? No. All right. So then I would take a motion for consideration and approval to enter into executive session as outlined in 1 MRSA section 4056A for the purpose of discussing the superintendent's evaluation. Kara and Colin, thank you. All those in favor? Great. No one opposed. So we will take a quick break so that they can break down and go. Did they tell you where they wanted us to go?
Yeah, across the hall.
Across the hall? Okay, great. Yeah, leave.